there, welcome to Good Game Pocket Edition, the show where we like to squeeze it all in. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex.
This week we had true variety in the games we were playing, but the one that had the most dinosaurs was Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate for the Wii U.
But first, let's turn our attention to the ever-encroaching zombie horde in The Walking Dead Survival Instinct. This first-person shooter is based on the Walking Dead television series, unlike Telltale's adventure games, which are based on the comics. Here, you play the crossbow-wielding Daryl Dixon, your objectives being to scavenge for supplies, perhaps help out some survivors, and of course dispatch a lot of walkers.
Hex, the action just felt so clunky to me. It feels underdeveloped, like they rushed this out to maybe cash in on the popularity of The Walking Dead. It tries to be a stealthy, tension-filled game, but so rough that it just ends up being dull.
Look, I think this is a budget title, and it actually did have some nice ideas, but they weren't implemented well, so I gave it 6.
I gave it 5. But the walking doesn't stop there. Let's have a look at Year Walk. This game bases itself on an ancient Swedish practice called year walking, in which people go through sensory deprivation before wandering out into the forest in the hope of receiving a mystical glimpse into the future. The game itself is a puzzle-filled mystery wrapped in an enigma, which will require note-taking, patience, and a desire to unlock the things which are locked.
It's actually important too to download the free companion app, which acts as a database of information on the characters and symbols you come across. I ended up really enjoying this discovery of what the ancient tradition was all about, probably more than the actual puzzling, which never really wowed me that much.
I struggled with the pace of it a bit, but the atmosphere and the intrigue won me over in the end, so I gave it 7 out of 10.
I think it's really well suited to a tablet device, and even though it's short, it feels substantial, so I gave it 7.5. Next up, the first LEGO game on the Wii U. LEGO City Undercover is a GTA-style open-world game that keeps the action kid-friendly, as here you're enforcing the law, not breaking it. And as undercover cop Chase McCain, you'll be involved in wild car chases and action-packed arrests, there's costume switching to solve puzzles, and you'll use the Wii U touchpad to scan for crims, blocks, and listen into conversations.
Beautiful, even if I do say so myself.
It is nice to be playing an open-world LEGO game, and it's pretty much as fun as you would expect, but I feel like because it is geared more towards kids, that does make a lot of the mechanics way too simple. Like the combat, which is mind-numbingly tedious.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think the overall bigger picture here is much more positive. There's a huge amount of variety in this game, and some of those movie references were definitely for the grown-ups.
I have no idea to this day what those 2 Italian ladies were singing about. I also don't know why those guys are dancing together. And how did he get that saucepan on his head?
I mean, this is a virtual playground, and I had a ball, so I gave it 8.
I think the writing and the characters are the strongest part of this game, especially the character Frank Honey, who is just like Brick from Anchorman, my favourite character all year for all the games I've played. But yeah, it didn't look as good, and it didn't play as well as I thought it would, so I gave it 7.5. We should go read some questions at the Ask Good Game desk, Hex. What do you think?
And answer them as
Yeah,
well.
let's do that.
Okay, well, this week our question is from Loft Mosh, who is in a mosh pit outside Australia. Good game! Ah! Hi! First of all, I love your freaking show! I love you, Bajo and Hex. Darren, you're one good-looking bag of bolts, and you guys ain't noobs. Okay, back to the matter at hand. What? I've been hearing rumours on the interwebs that a Skyrim mod called Skywind, which is basically the whole game of TES 3 Morrowind, being modded into Skyrim, is being made or is made already. I'd like to know if these rumours are true, and if it is, would you review this mod? I know it's just a mod, but the whole idea of Morrowind with Skyrim's graphics is kind of a big deal. You guys reviewed DayZ, so I don't see why you shouldn't review this Skyrim mod or any other mod of any other game. Thanks, please reply, and I love you, GG team. Yes, you too, mystery background people. P.S. I also hear that a mod of the same nature is being made, except it's Oblivion instead of Morrowind. What?
Well, Mr. Mosh, those aren't rumours, those are facts. Skywind and Skyblivion, as they are known, are both very real mods. Skyblivion hasn't started development though, and Skywind has a lot of work left to do.
But you can go and download an early build of Skywind right now and check it out for yourself. But you will need a copy of both Morrowind with all of its expansions, as well as Skyrim to get it running.
It's certainly an epic undertaking to essentially remake a game as big as Morrowind, so I think it might take a bit of time before it gets a final final release. As for if we will review it, well, I'm not sure. It really depends on what it's going to be like when it's finished. If there's something that it's doing that's interesting or if it's worth checking out, then we absolutely will check it out.
Fair enough. Well, on that note, I think it's time for You Review. This week, we'll take a look at what you all thought of the latest Bioshock, and it's not much of a surprise that most of you absolutely loved it with plenty of 10 out of 10 scores, but let's see what the harsher critics among you had to say.
Super Noob Destroyer writes, "Wow, game is terrible. The developers should have stopped making the game when they had the chance." Half a star, some harsh critique there.
Okay, next up we have this one from Sash, who said, "I like the game, but it is revolting and a disgrace to me. Firstly, it has the worst graphics. Hello, we're in the 21st century. Keep up with the graphics. And the storyline is all over the place. Come on, I even went back to EB Games and demanded my money back." Half a star. Well, Sash, I personally thought the graphics were pretty amazing, but each their own, I guess.
Yes, and as always, some of you have a knack for reviewing games without actually playing them. A unique skill.
I guess you're expecting me?
Alcavez says, "I've tried hard to like this series, but alas, I cannot. Yes, the graphics are good in this newest installment, but it appears to be the same fetch quests and predictable storyline from the last two games. Sorry to say, I will be missing this one, 2 stars. Well, fair enough if it doesn't float your boat, Alcavez, but I don't remember there being any fetch quests or many. I'm pretty sure you won't be predicting how the story pans out without playing it too. It's quite a complex interweaving."
No Noob here seemed to just find it all a bit confusing, saying, "The start of the whole post-apocalypse world is interesting. Elizabeth Strange, what is going on? Ah! Ugh. Great Scott!"
Come to get you out of
Get
here.
away!
6.5 stars.
Meanwhile, Starsun didn't find much to love or hate and says simply, "An all-right game, 6.5 stars."
But the vast majority of you couldn't heap enough glowing praise on it. Sam writes, "Hex should have given it a 10. Tomb Raider was really bad." And then gave it 9.5 stars. Well, I, for one, enjoyed Tomb Raider just a little bit more, so it got the edge in my book.
And the Mad Muffin writes, "A masterpiece in design, gameplay and story, the staple mark for first-person shooters and just games in general. One of the greatest games of this console generation, if not all console generations, 10 out of 10. I agree totally, Mr. Muffin. It certainly has a high staple mark for games." And finally, for the week, Matuna says, "Bioshock Infinite easily deserves a 10 out of 10 for marvelous storytelling and gameplay. It does the impossible and goes above and beyond Bioshock. Perfecting perfection takes hard work. 10 out of 10.
Right, well, I guess it's back to studio.
All right.
Good game.
Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is not just a high-def remake of Tri for the 3DS and the Wii U, it's a complete overhaul. As the name implies, you control a professional hunter of monsters. It can take a while to track down your quarry in this sprawling, slightly strange fantasy wilderness, but once you do, the real game begins, for Monster Hunter is all about drawn-out, tense boss fights.
These dragons are super freaky. They move fast, hit hard, and their attack patterns seem overwhelming at first. Dying is a part of the learning process, but it's still humiliating when you're dragged back to base with your bum in the air.
But when you do learn a monster's moves, the tide turns and the fights become more cathartic.
Ah, you thought this was a mud hole, Mr. Baroth. But no, it's an operating table, and I'm the surgeon.
They've bumped the number of weapon classes up to 12 in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I'm always partial to a bit of archery, so I was happy to see that bows are better suited to solo play now, thanks to a handy vertical barrage attack.
And if you prefer to tank your way through, then the gun lance beckons.
I really like the way they rebalanced the hunting horn class. Aside from the absurd kick you get from belting a wyvern with a giant harmonica, you can be a credit to the team with your buffs.
All the Monster Hunter games have a bit of a weird vibe to them, but that's kind of half of the charm. But before we get any further, let's talk graphics. While the Wii U version has a high-def engine, the textures and character models all look suspiciously low-def, as do some of the environments, and worse yet, a lot of the textures look like they've simply been ripped from the 3DS version.
But the more important issue is how it all plays. Capcom has refined the combat but hasn't messed with the core gameplay.
Yeah, about that, there is so much that you have to learn from forums and friends and trial and error, and while that can be a really good thing, I always find it a little bit too much to get my head around with the Monster Hunter games. Take this guy, the Duramboros. He's so big that if you melee him, it's hard to see what the heck you're doing. But venture out with a ranged weapon instead, and he just turns into a huge punching bag.
Even then, that tail attack. There are quite a few new features like the ultra difficult G rank quest tier, and if you own both the 3DS and Wii U versions of the game, you can transfer your save back and forth, which is fantastic. There's also quite a limited lock-on feature now, but I actually prefer the precision of manual camera control, I think. I just think this world has so much personality. And what's with this pig? I mean, he doesn't do anything except for that cute little dance.
This is one peculiar game. There's a lot of pre-quest prep and item box fiddling, and some of those random quest rewards are maddening. For a game that's supposedly all about skill, it does feel like a slot machine at times.
But the real reward here isn't the loot, it's learning how to teach those dragons a lesson. The real reward of Monster Hunter is satisfaction. There is a staggering amount of content in 3 Ultimate that'll really keep you entertained for a while, and I think fans will go absolutely nuts on it, so I gave it 8.5 out of 10.
I absolutely agree with you, but I also found the game quite odd and maddening, so I gave it 7 out of 10.
Piggy disagrees.
Good game.
Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Good Game Pocket, but don't forget you can catch us at 8:30 on Tuesday nights for a regular episode of Good Game. We'll be back next week with the latest army of 2 game, The Devil's Cartel.
But until next week, Budge out.
May all your games be good ones. Hex out.